Hi there. My name is Dr. Seymour Kern, and we're continuing on. There's about 18 chapters in this skinny little book, and possible to get through it real quick. Um, so I hope you enjoy it, and it's to the point. No need in writing a big volume of whatever and then forgetting it all. So everything I have here is very important, easy to remember, and let's see how it goes. So, chapter 6 is entitled What Role Does Sleep Play? That's interesting. Um, Nature has reasons for everything, so it says in my book. Sleep is no exception. From time from the time we arise in the morning until the time we go to sleep, the brain is constantly being bombarded with a barrage of impulses, both informational and non-informational. That part, the non-informational, is what we call noise, at least a certain type of noise, many different types. Being the infinite storage house that it is, the brain records it all, including all the noise it hears. However, by the end of the day, we feel so tired and exhausted that we impatiently await the miraculous process of sleep to take over and relieve us of the agony. Isn't that true? Um, it's agony when you don't have enough sleep. It's like pushing uphill. Sleep, however, is also a very active process. The mind never really shuts down, even in sleep. It could even be more active during sleep. It is continually burning fuel, combining sugar with oxygen and lots of it, both day and night. It exhausts more oxygen than any other organ of the body. We're talking about the brain. In short, the brain is somewhat like the heart, rarely tires or fatigues. It continues to do its job as the master control center for the entire body, including itself, 24/7. So, what's causing the fatigue or discomfort? Is it a buildup of useful information or is it something else? Before actually falling asleep, we generally retire for the evening to a dark and quiet room. We then close our eyes and ears to the outside world and eventually lapse into a hypnotic state of mind called sleep. Our brain waves and eye movements change completely. We can often experience vivid dreams with sound, generally in full color as a child, and then progressively go to black and white as adults. Why is that? Hmm. Well, yeah, I noticed that. Did you ever notice that when you were a child? Did you have colorful dreams? Well, mine were. During a night, I even remember when I was born. First it was dark and then it was light. Obviously, you know what happened. During a nightmare, the brain's activity can be as fierce as a cyclone to propel us out of bed, where we find ourselves possibly on the floor. Yeah, that's happened to me a couple of times. Hate to admit it. There is no limit to what we can experience during a nightmare. It's as though it were real life happening, where the sleeper becomes totally involved in the reality of the experience from head to toe, as vivid as if it was taking place in the daytime. This is not noise. This is purely stored information being reshaped and reenacted into an almost true to life performance until you are awakened by someone and brought back to reality. Because forever, whatever is in your mind is real for you, believe it or not. So it would appear that the brain is not experiencing any fatigue from even the worst nightmare. As a matter of fact, we find ourselves to be full of energy, which is often quite opposite of what we would expect in this situation. Therefore, by elimination, the culprit that is causing fatigue must be noise, i.e., non-information that is obviously blocking our massive information superhighway in the mind. So fatigue is therefore synonymous with excessive resistance or blockage of by non-information, which is now commonly referred to as noise. In sleep, therefore, the brain burns most energy in its continuous effort to lower both non-noise and noise activity. By the time we open our eyes in the morning, the process of sleep has provided us again with a clean, fresh slate in the mind to start the day again. The process of sleep is thus one of the most important mechanisms by which the brain can achieve what we refer to in low noise thinking an optimal noise level. And so that was the end of chapter 6. Again, what role does sleep play? It has a tremendous role. Without it, we go nuts. You got to remember, from the time we wake up to the time we go to bed, the brain is collecting information until it reaches what's called information overload. And so we find that people, by the way, people who are very bright have a requirement for very little sleep. And they're so bright that, how would suicide... Anyway, that's a different chapter. I don't want to get into it. But let's talk about it later. So when it comes to the suicidal mindset, which is quite fascinating as to how that happens. And, for most things, we got explanations for a lot of things. But the one thing I have to warn you that suicide comes from within. And it's not anybody's fault or anything having said anything. It's generally a problem with internal mechanics of the brain. Now, knowing the structure, we have a way now of perhaps in the future finding a solution. As my pharmacology professor said, if you know the structure of a drug, you know how that drug will work. Isn't that true? Think about it. But they weren't just talking about drugs. If you know the structure of anything, if you know the composition, the solution then is clearly in sight. In any case, we're going to be talking to you next time about, that's in chapter 7, conversation, a pin drop next to the sound of a jet engine. Imagine trying to hear a pin drop when a jet engine goes. Anyway, that should be an interesting topic. Come join me. Tell all your friends about what we have here. I want to do a lot of these lectures. I'm not in practice right now. I'm retired. I advise you that if you need, professional help or would like to check me out, go to your doctors and see how they go. In any case, I want you to enjoy life. And the more you learn, the better. Knowledge is power. And we're here to give you all the power that your brain can deliver. And believe me, it's got a lot of power. Okay, let's, by the way, if any of you have any questions, you can email me so that during our next sessions we can answer any questions. My email address is cybersci, at me.com. Now, cyberpsi is spelled C for Charlie, Y for Young, B for Boy, E for Edward, R for Romeo, that's cyber, then comes psi, that's C for Charlie, Y for Young, at me.com. So it's cyberpsi at me.com. If you send me a phone number, I'll be happy to call you back. Give me some time. Usually I respond within, as quickly as I can. So I'm looking for interesting questions for the next book that I'm writing. Haven't thought of the title yet, but we'll find something. There are a lot of things. So after all my years of training, I've seen some pretty interesting things, anywhere from the most beautiful to the most horrific. And so there's a lot of things I want to tell you about, I want to share with you, and let's take it from there. So if you like what you heard, I apologize for my fancy reading style. Not the best. I wasn't the best reader in school, but I made up for it in many, many ways that you will see. Okay, I wish you the best and look forward to seeing you for Chapter 7, Conversation, a Pin Drop Next to the Sound of a Jet Engine. Okay, have a listen. Good night.